On this episode of the Dairyland Initiative podcast, we're going to be talking about Loopy Loops. Hi, I'm Courtney Hallbach.
And I'm Nigel Cook.
And this is the Dairyland Initiative podcast,
where we get to discuss issues related to the housing and management of dairy cattle.
Let's dive in.
Well, Courtney,
we've been waiting for this one. The world has been waiting for this one.
The world has been waiting for Loopy Loops.
Yeah. Have you lost your mind?
What were they thinking?
Now, fair warning, everyone. I've looked ahead at Dr. Cook's slides, and it is picture after picture after picture. So if you want to get the most out of this episode, we highly recommend tuning in on YouTube for the visuals. Actually, Spotify also
has the visual option.
But YouTube would probably be best as Dr. Cook goes off on a rant.
Yes, and while you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Look at you.
Look at that.
Way to be a marketer.
We're doing our own marketing here. So what do we mean by this? Has Cook completely lost his mind?
I would say so.
I am relying on you keeping me out of jail on this one.
Yeah, it did say lawyer up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, last episode we set the scene. We described what we think is an optimal loop.
Yes.
With good reason. A horizontal bar to tell the cow where to lie down, to set front lunge, to give her the option of side lunge, but really only as a sort of secondary option, but not setting that bar too high or too low to cause injury or prevent side lunge, and then angling it up and out of the way at the correct point, not too far forward so that it doesn't really tell the cow the lying position you want, not too far back that it potentially injures the cow, and then setting the neck rail at the correct height.
And you'd think this is pretty straightforward and simple, but there are many variations out on the market.
There are, but there are lots of barns built correctly.
Okay.
And so we'll start there.
We're staying positive to
We're
begin
staying
with.
positive to start with. That, this is one of our favorite barns, and we share lots of pictures from this one, but it has a dual rail system suspending the whole loop assembly above the bedding that can be potentially wet and cause rust and damage to the structure, suspended above with everything in the right place, and not a lot of contact. This barn is now 4 or 5 years old.
You don't see shiny metal, do you?
There's not a lot of shine. There's a little bit of shine here, but you're going to expect a little bit of that. But there isn't anything bent. You go around this whole 300 cow barn, there's not a lot of bent metal. So if you put the metal in the right place, it doesn't get hit and it doesn't cause injury, and it can last quite a long time. The first few slides we're sharing here are some homemade versions of this. So we went to a lot of barns that wanted to retrofit, and they were dealing with vertically concreted in posts, set too narrow, tiny little 45-inch wide stalls, and we're dealing with big Holstein cows. So they wanted to reutilize some of the equipment they had, and in this case we had a fairly decent loop, and so they put together an option and made their own single beam mounting system, which required these sort of channels and C-clamps to hold the loop. So you could do that, and that was one example, and you can kind of see how these things are clamped together using that rail to suspend the loops as in a well-designed new one, but reutilizing a lot of the old equipment.
I like that, but if you go back a couple, you'll see a lot of buildup of sand underneath, and that really takes away from the lower divider rail and its function.
Yeah, you're picking up that mounding of bedding under the loop. Yeah, that's important.
So it's really important to rake that back so that lower divider rail can position the cow in the stall and make sure she doesn't get stuck in between the loop.
Yeah, and oftentimes, even with these older loops, they weren't put at the right height, so we'd take the opportunity to lift the whole thing up. So that was often done. This was one where they made a custom standpipe, just welded sleeves of metal, and then again used these C-clamps on a dual rail. This one's probably a little bit too low, in a sense that some of the cows, it won't be level with the tops of their heads. But
when they're lying down. But
that was a good effort. And so we're going to start into a parade of...
So this is where you get pessimistic?
This is the a gallery of failure.
Oh, jeez. Okay, let me just sit back and relax.
So we mentioned that we wanted this lower rail to be level and extend forward. And this was one of the first examples of where that bar bends down, creates that sort of side lunging point. We get diagonal lying. See how much these bars are rubbed underneath here because the cow's back end is getting wedged underneath that bar. And not surprisingly, we've got a lame cow with a swollen hock wedged in here, and she will try to utilize that lunge space. And this stall is too short, but if you actually did this on a longer platform, the cows would end up getting stuck in this area. So in this one, we've got a similar loop with the lower rail diving down and getting either concreted or bolted into the stall surface. But notice this, Courtney. There's a wire.
A wire hanging in front. Is that to prevent the cows from?
You've got to try to understand what has happened in the history of this farm for a farmer to put a wire here, right where the cow's head would be, right in the lunge space. And it's got to be that cows were getting stuck in the front. And they get stuck in the front because of that lower rail diving down and them making these aborted attempts at getting up.
And I'm guessing this isn't a fix. You're just making the problem worse. Is there anything to do to fix?
You will stop the cows getting into this space with that wire, but they won't lie in them either. So you're impacting something, again, that we don't measure. We don't measure lying time. So we don't see the negative result of that. And if you think, oh, well, we used to do that, we've moved on. Well, this is the website yesterday.
Oh, geez.
This is a loop that you can find that's currently being sold that does exactly the same thing.
Now, if you are on a farm with this loop design, is there a way to fix it, or do you have to replace the entire loop system? Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Cha-ching. You could try to bolt something across here.
Okay.
Yeah, you could try to fill this space in. Maybe a wooden panel or something like that. It's not going to look very good.
We don't care about looks. We care about the function.
Sometimes bad decisions are permanent. This is a European loop, pretty common on the farms that we visit over there. It's not the worst.
Okay.
Yeah? I do think the bar running across the front is a little bit low. Mm-hmm. So I think that could be a lunge obstruction, but that could be lifted. So there's nothing about the integrity of this loop that would be negatively impacted by raising that up so it's properly positioned. I think this rail's too low. So the lower rail is really close to the bedding surface. And then it does a kind of funny S shape that
is it supposed to allow?
I really
for
don't think
lunge?
It needs to do. I mean, they do like bending bars in Europe.
Okay.
They do all sorts of things, but I don't think it needs to bend down and up. But you see this cow's head's, nicely positioned. Maybe it facilitates that. But what I do notice is there's lots of rubbing on here. And it kind of angles up and out of the way. And instead of the correct diameter, this has got the bendy neck rails, which on a deep bedded stall doesn't help position the cow very well. So I don't like that aspect of it. But probably the main thing I don't like is that you have to concrete it in. And with sand bedding, it's going to rot out. So this thing's going to rust and eventually have to be repositioned anyway. So I don't think terribly bad from the cow perspective.
Okay.
Just structurally, I don't think the preferred way to go. So there are other options, particularly on sand-bedded stalls, that farmers like to get everything up and out of the way. Mm-hmm. And this is the dog bone loop.
Yikes. So it kind of looks like the Michigan loop.
Same concept. Yep, so it's got this big opening. It lifts the lower rail up and over the top of the cow's head. It's got the double beam hanging system. That's generally okay. It's out of the lunge space of the cow. But it does entertain this side lunge option.
Big time.
What we've noticed with these ones, and they're kind of built for equipment, not cows.
Okay.
They're built for grooming equipment to go straight underneath here and no risk of hitting anything. That's what farmers like about these dog bones. But again, you've got lots of open space underneath the back of the rail, and it will promote diagonal lying and side lunging. And so you kind of see that here with this cow too far forward. There is a brisket slope underneath here, but she's too far forward. There's probably too much bedding on the top of it, so she's not feeling where to place herself. And, you know, you've got all this open space. Why wouldn't you use it? The issue on this farm with regard to placement was the neck rails are too far forward, and you kind of see that here with this cow. She's standing all the way on the
stall platform.
And golden rule of deep bedded stalls is we want them to perch. So that neck rail needed to come back. If you pulled that back, you'd probably get a bit less of this. So I think cows were ending up standing too far forward and then lying too far forward. But even then, this diagonal line can cause this problem, Courtney. And this was one we saw a number of times way back, but recently with this type of loop. And these are medial hock lesions. And these are relatively mild, but you can get cellulitis and joint infection from these and basically dead cows.
And it's because they're lying diagonally with their leg hanging off the curb.
Yeah, so previously we saw this cow sort of with her leg up. You know, they're diagonal lying, so the legs are kind of hanging around here. But sometimes, if they're positioned back in the stall, they actually drop off the back edge of the platform, and that puts that weight and pressure on the medial side of the hock, and that's where we get those hock sores and hock injuries.
And would you say that this diagonal lying, you know, not only is because of the dog bone loop giving that space up front, but is it because it is installed on an appropriately sized stall platform? Is it okay to put this type of a loop on a shorter platform at 7-8 foot?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, the resting space and the lunge space of the cow, it doesn't change if you want the cow to lunge to the front, but maybe because of the design of this loop, you'd want them to lunge to the side. I'm never going to design a stall that cows have to lunge to the side as a
fair point,
as a design. So I'm not really in favor of that. I think a lot of the problem was solved by improved bedding maintenance and pulling the neck rail back a little bit so that they didn't end up standing too far forward and getting set too far forward when they lay down. But yeah, the other possibility is that cows end up like this, where we've got a cow that kind of has stumbled forwards, and now she's lying across the front of the stall underneath two dog bone loops. I think we can do better, and again, you see the hygiene of these stalls is not that great. And here's a new version.
What is this?
It's a dog bone with extra bends, because now Americans like bending metal as well as Europeans. Yeah, I don't know. Haven't seen it in real life, but we're still building this kind of loop and putting it out there. So buyer beware, I would say. This was one we got from a colleague in Europe. They sent this one over, and they said, well, what do you think of this? And I can remember you going, what?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so what's to like and what's not to like? Well,
it looks like a cathedral from this angle. Some pretty piping.
There's a lot of piping in the middle, isn't there? Yeah. Biggest issue amongst many, the lower rail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not level. It's angled straight from its point of attachment. The point of attachment is basically where the brisket locator would be, and there isn't a brisket locator as far as we can tell here. And then there's this sort of weird curved vertical bar
up
that
front,
I think is supposed to accommodate the cow's head when she's kind of lying there.
Okay.
But what a shitty mess. I mean, just cows lying, putting manure everywhere. It's got a funny little plastic hanging neck rail that doesn't do anything for placing the cow, so not approved.
Yeah, and I feel like some people that have these designs are like, well, we have this and it works, and you're just showing the worst of the worst. But
we obviously see the worst because people send us
the
problems.
Yeah.
You know, people don't send us pictures of cows using these stalls where everything's fantastic, because why would they? Maybe we'll get some now. But remember, previous episode, the divider loop isn't the most important thing of stall design. Yeah, it's the surface, it's the space, it's the ability for the cow to get up and down normally. This is really about hygiene and injury. I'd say it's failing.
Yes, on this case, it is.
And this one too. This was the original Freedom stall. We showed a brief picture of this one with some jerseys because we We like to, show some different breeds in
Yep.
this podcast. And I do like to have a jersey test the environments that we create.
So you need a token jersey in every herd.
You need a jersey to sort of tell you whether you're on the right direction. And these cows are just like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, if you're going to do this, why not just let us have the whole platform?
Oh, I've seen some cows take advantage of the whole platform and just walked across the back.
So just step over this beam, what we call a spear. It's not level. It slopes down. It creates that side lunge space. It doesn't work. So this was a floating neck rail with a single spear. And then it became a green one. And then they put an extra level spear at shoulder height. And they put the neck rail on that rather than hanging and floating. But you still see the same problem. So
of diagonal line.
Diagonal line, it's not telling the cow where to lie down. Yeah. So this one's lying completely underneath the lower spears. We've got what looks like a single beam mounting system, but it's not. There's actually a mounting below here because the whole thing would fall apart if they didn't have two anchor points. And that's right in the cow's front lunge space.
Yeah.
So you've taken away front lunge. You've made side lunge the priority. Mm-hmm. And you've given the cow lots of space to get her butt underneath this rail. So congratulations, you've created a side lunge dirty stall with cows lying diagonally across it.
From what I've heard from people, they're really afraid of metal injuring the cows.
Yes.
And so the reason that they implement this kind of a stall is because of that.
To prevent injury.
Exactly.
Yep.
But like you've said, if you put the metal in the right place, you're not going to injure the cow.
This will prevent injury, but it won't promote good lying positions. Now, if you put this in from a prior situation where the cows have been used to using free stalls, they may well, utilize the space and not have too many issues. But the heifers and the jerseys might still challenge the scenario.
You.
It's still got a nice surface. This has a deep bedded manure solid surface. Mm-hmm. Still a comfortable place to lie down. The cows will use it. They will find a way to use a soft surface. And then the latest version are the red ones. So they've gone from black to green to red. And this is a younger animal that said, let's just do this.
Well,
she's
I
standing
was out
in
on
backwards.
This farm and the cow was just walking down the top of the curb, and it was just thud, thud, thud as she
just twang the fiberglass pipes.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, and there's, we've got a bit of manure on the back of the stalls. This cow's, again, lying diagonally because she's got space underneath that bar. So, yes, they prevent injury, but they don't promote hygiene. Mm-hmm. And I think we can do better. I don't fear that if we put metal galvanized steel in the right place, that we will have lots of cow injuries. And we've got proof of that. This one was a blue version, so I like all the colors of all these fiberglass loops. So I'm trying to do the broad spectrum of these things. This one has some weird sort of itching things.
I was going to say, it looks like cows can scratch on these.
Yeah. But again, biggest issue with this, it's narrow. The lower rail is angled. There's rails in the wrong place. You've got a chin clipper bar down here. Look at the lying position. And this is a promotional picture for this product from the web. Look at the lying position of these cows down here. I love to look in the background of a lot of these pictures.
It's not the foreground, it's the background.
And look at this cow. I mean, she's completely diagonal across this stall. Half of front of the body is over this rail. So, again, I think we live in the can do better kind of category here, and this has become a popular one. This is we've joined the lower spear and the upper spear.
Yep.
We've joined them up.
It looks like a loop,
and now we've got a loop. So we've arrived after 10 years of messing around with fiberglass. We're now making loops,
and to be honest, at first glance it looks like
okay.
You want.
It looks kind of like what we were showing pictures of, but get your tape measure out. Okay, this is too low.
The lower divider rail is too low.
Doesn't extend far enough back because this comes with a molded brisket area as well, which actually fits underneath here. So this doesn't extend far enough backwards, and the interior diameter isn't wide enough so that the rail, even though it's flexible, is too low. So it doesn't help position the cow. So yes, the cow's going to have a comfortable lying position. She's got a little scratchy post on the neck rail. She can have an itch. But look at the torque on that thing.
Yeah.
And this gets back to mainly why I don't like them. This cow is lying diagonally, shocker, and she is really twisting this thing. And the beauty of this product is
it can handle it.
It'll handle that. But it'll only handle that if you use these vertical standpipes and you concrete them into the base in front. So they are selling different options for hanging these loops. This is the main one we see. I have serious doubts of the ability of anything other than this to handle that degree of torque and strain and twisting long term. And so we end up going backwards. This is back 10 years, bolting things into the stall surface that we've tried to get away from.
Yeah.
And for that, this gets a fail for me. Again, certainly not the worst design in the world, but
could do better.
Could do better. Yeah. And hopefully they might. It's progressed over over the years for sure. So we'll see this in the future. This is a European one. Very easy to find bad loops in Europe. Let's go through.
First, that's a huge brisket pipe.
Huge brisket pipe, no gap. So we know either the pipe's too big for the brisket locator or the rail's too low. Okay, so it should never be sat on the top. So that's
big.
We can't measure this one, but
flag, yep.
Big red flag. We've got a lovely horizontal mounting bar right in the bob zone.
Yep.
So we have a bob zone violation. This bar doesn't extend far enough backwards and then gives the cow a lot of space underneath. And then it has the bendy neck rail. So again, probably works on a mattress stall. Not going to be my favorite for a deep bedded stall. And this is a promotional picture. Look at the lying position of this cow.
Yeah.
She's all over the, diagonal lying 101. Yeah. Junk in front. Total fail. And then
I feel like somebody needs to hire you to go through their marketing materials before putting it online.
I'd love to, Courtney. And this is a real one. These were pictures sent to you, Courtney, because the farm was having problems with cows getting these back injuries. And you see this cow has a big weeping sore on her spine, and this tells you why. Yeah, because you've got not the horizontal mounting bar, you've got the version that bends down and concretes in on this one, which promotes side lunge and diagonal lying. Too big a brisket locator. Cows can't get their leg over the top of it. And you are going to get some pressure sores there and some injuries. So can do better. But to prevent that, the manufacturers will say, well, if you're getting sores back here, well, let's weld another bar on.
Makes sense.
So there's we sell this one, but if you want one to work better, you can buy this one with the extra green bar, Loopy Loops.
That's right.
This is where we're going a little bit loopy here.
Okay.
Yeah, and remember that loop way back,
yeah,
where we were measuring how far to extend the rail back in the stall. Remember that old one?
Yes.
20 years ago. This is on a website today. This rail goes all the way back to the stall platform, all the way across.
But from first glance,
hey, all the cows are lying in.
Yeah.
But where are they lying?
A little too far forward.
Too far
in my
forward.
Opinion.
Why are they lying too far forward?
Because of that bendy neck rail.
The bendy neck rail. Because you really struggle to locate the cow with those bendy neck rails. It's a nice deep bedded stall. The cows are going to use these stalls. They're going to find a way. Even though they've got a front lunge obstruction, got a bar right in their face, they've got a rail that doesn't position them when they're standing properly, and they got a rail that extends and digs in their backs all the way back to the back edge of the stall. Fail.
Yikes.
And then we got this one. This one kind of emerged a few months ago.
Just angles straight up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Just yeah. Is that all
Just
you got to
yeah.
say?
Just
Dr.
yeah. I mean, soft surface.
Great.
Great surface, but we've got an angled rail that points all the way down to the front of the stall. Not going to work. You've got a strap here that's probably not high enough, and then you've got some funky stuff going on here. Probably the neck rail
Might be in the right position.
could be in the right position. I fear that it's not high enough. But look, take a closer look at where the nuts are, Courtney.
The nuts are down.
Rank amateurs.
Jeez.
Whenever you see nuts down, and they can't do anything else with this one because it's a metal loop that curves around the neck rail.
Ugh.
Oh, this is something that you haven't seen.
Nope.
This is from some of our friends over in Europe. They've been experimenting, and honestly, we talked to them about the things that we wanted with that extended lower rail and having that rail extend back behind the brisket locator, and they've done that, and they've created this kind of interesting positioning device with big red balls that kind of lines the cow up in the stall, and then there's a bar that goes backwards. Haven't seen it in real life.
The idea was to get rid of the neck rail, right?
The idea was to get rid of the neck rail and to try to position the cow in a different way. So there are designs out there that we have no experience of. Mm-hmm. All we can do is say, go back to first principles of the anatomy of the loop, getting rid of any kind of horizontal obstructions in front of the cow, having that horizontal rail extending back far enough but not too far to position the cow, and then let her rip. Let's see what happens. And then I think this one won an award recently.
Yes, it did.
And we love the idea of air movement in the cow microenvironment.
Yeah, go back to our earlier episodes.
The minimum cooling airspeed, 200 feet per minute, 1 meter per second at cow resting height. And this design has a horizontal bar with holes in it.
To promote fast-moving air in the resting space.
Well,
you'd think.
I think there's some air coming out of the little holes.
Do you think it's at 200 feet per minute or 1 meter per second?
What do you think, Courtney? You're the PPT design expert.
Yeah, I don't know how the physics work on this.
Yeah, and we've seen this in real life that the airspeed is not quite what we were talking about, and it kind of dissipates. I'm not even sure it reaches the cow, to be honest. But a nice idea, I'm going to say, well, well
Innovation.
Done. Gave it the old college try there. We'll see. So hopefully in the last, this episode and the last one, we've given people a way to look at those divider loops. Yeah. And from the perspective of the cow, so that you can kind of say, okay, what does she need? What does this new loop design that manufacturer X is trying to sell me, does it do these things? And if it does, great, give it a try. But if it has some of these risk factors that we've identified for nigh on 20 years, and again, these bad ideas don't seem to die. They drift away and then they come back 10 to 15 years later. But if they have those challenges, they're not going to work that well. And we've centered around a design that isn't flashy, unfortunately. It doesn't look super complicated.
No.
That my basic loop has 2 bends in it, but we got a lot of farms where they work really well.
So thanks for tuning in, and if you want any more information about stall design, please check out the Dairyland Initiative website for more details.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. The Dairyland Initiative is supported by industry leaders who are advancing cow comfort worldwide. We would like to say a special thank you to our premier sponsor, Saputo, who is providing the global community with high-quality dairy products made from high-quality milk from healthy and well-cared-for animals. We'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsors, SaveCows.com, Zinpro, GPS Dairy Consulting, 40 Barn, Sure Gain Trow Nutrition, Munters, J&D Manufacturing, VES Artex, Ventec, and Kestrel Instruments. Thanks for tuning in to the Dairyland Initiative podcast. Want more Dairyland Initiative? Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on our socials, and visit our website for all of the latest recommendations in dairy cattle housing and management. See you next time.